A 5-second penalty for clipping his own teammate at the 2025 Canadian Grand Prix.
No, he's ripped off the front wing! The McLarens collide! Lando Norris into the wall!
Rage-baiting quotes that practically set social media ablaze, losing races from what he himself called stupid driver errors. Seriously, what happened? How on earth did Lando Norris go from F1's beloved meme king and fan favorite golden boy to the driver who seems to be collecting more criticism than podiums, both on and off the track?
And Norris can't fight his way by. We go to turn one. No, he's ripped off the front wing. The McLarens collide. Lando Norris into the wall.
His bold, unapologetic racing style and increasingly outspoken moments have turned him into a full-blown lightning rod for rivalries, with everyone from rival drivers to pundits, and even his own fan base piling on. Is he genuinely the grid's newest villain, or is this just one giant fascinating misunderstanding? Stick around, because we're diving deep into how F1's most wholesome rookie somehow became one of its most polarizing figures, and what really sparked this dramatic shift.
Lando Norris wins for the first time in Formula One!
You've done it, mate. You've done it.
To even begin untangling Lando's current reputation, we have to rewind to his meteoric rise as F1's undisputed golden boy. When he burst onto the scene with McLaren in 2019, he wasn't your typical media-trained rookie. Nope, Lando was the delightful anomaly, quick with a self-deprecating joke, openly admitting his nerves, and absolutely refusing to hide behind a PR-approved wall of bland answers. Instead, he just let his personality shine. Whether it was through his wildly popular gaming streams, candid interviews, or even just his hilarious team radio antics, he made himself shockingly accessible in a way most elite athletes simply don't. Fans didn't just see another helmeted figure. They saw someone who felt genuinely like one of their own, unfiltered and utterly charming.
From Piastri potentially in the McLaren. Yes, it has. Look, he's missing a bit of front wing there.
Piastri coming in.
I heard Oscar and Ocon came together and all of their debris hit my car.
This kind of raw approachability was a massive deal, especially with McLaren still desperately clawing their way back to the front of the grid. Let's be honest, the team had spent years lost in the midfield wilderness. So, when young Norris rolled in, he wasn't just another fresh face. He was a gleaming beacon of hope. He instantly became the poster child for their underdog redemption story, the plucky young driver who just might help drag McLaren back to its championship-winning glory days. Fans, quite rightly, absolutely latched onto that narrative. He was relatable, genuinely easy to root for, and he seemed authentically grateful just to be there. His online antics, the self-deprecating humor, and the way he constantly let fans peek behind the sacred curtain of F1 life built an incredibly strong, fiercely loyal following. For Lando, it quickly became clear it wasn't just about what he did when the lights went out on Sundays. It was about the genuinely quirky, charming personality he showed the rest of the week.
The house that Max rebuilt, the winner's orange once again. For the second time in Formula One, Lando Norris wins. For the third time in Formula One, Lando Norris takes the checkered flag, a dominant drive complete.
Everyone in Papaya, everyone who supported us this year, because it's been a tough one, but for us to win a Constructors after 26 years is pretty special.
But Lando wasn't just charming off track. He was quietly, steadily racking up results that forced the paddock to sit up and take serious notice. His early seasons were a masterclass in consistent improvement, but it was his absolutely epic breakthrough at the 2025 Australian Grand Prix that truly shattered the old narrative. That weekend, Norris survived everything Melbourne could throw at him. Biblical rain, hair-raising safety car restarts, and the relentless, suffocating pressure from a charging Max Verstappen to clinch his first win of the season. This wasn't some gift. He fought tooth and nail for every single lap, showcasing a blend of raw skill and an iron determination. That monumental drive didn't just prove he belonged at the sharp end of F1, it instantly ignited whispers of championship contender.
To everyone in McLaren, everyone in Papaya, everyone who supported us this year, because it's been a tough one, but for us to win a Constructors after 26 years is pretty special.
The media, as you'd expect, pounced on this faster than a DRS activation. Norris suddenly became the shiny new face of F1's next generation, with headlines screaming about his future dominance and comparisons to legends like Ayrton Senna and Lewis Hamilton popping up everywhere. And Zak Brown, McLaren's ever-enthusiastic CEO, didn't exactly downplay the hype. He famously declared Norris was cut from the same cloth as F1 legends. A quote like that followed Lando everywhere and immediately set expectations sky high. Suddenly, it wasn't just enough for Norris to be good. He had to be great. All the time. Those lofty comparisons became a wicked double-edged sword. They massively boosted his public reputation, but they also made every single mistake feel like a colossal failure.
And as much as I like hearing you breathe, check your radio.
All this relentless hype had a very real, very tangible impact on how both fans and the paddock viewed him. People weren't just tuning in to see if Norris could pull off another impressive drive. They were waiting for him to deliver on the seemingly endless promise of greatness. Social media feeds were drowning in highlight reels, slick fan edits, and endless breathless speculation about exactly when he'd finally hoist that championship trophy. Even when things inevitably didn't go perfectly, say a botched strategy call or a frustratingly missed podium, the narrative was always that Norris was perpetually on the absolute verge of something huge. The pressure kept building, relentless and unforgiving, and with it came the intense scrutiny.
And Lando, Gasly still the car in front. The car in front of him was Grosjean. He's pitted. If we can get in front of Gasly, we get some free air and it's good for us.
And just stop fucking talking when I'm trying to race.
And that's precisely when things started to shift. The higher Lando climbed, the more people started digging, looking for any tiny flaw. He'd been the wholesome rookie, the undisputed meme king, the universally adored guy everyone just wanted to hang out with. But in the ruthless, unforgiving arena of F1, nobody stays truly untouchable for long. As Norris grew more competitive and the stakes got exponentially higher, his personality in the cockpit visibly changed. He became more aggressive, undeniably more frustrated, and crucially, he wasn't afraid to let those raw emotions show, whether it was over the radio, in a heated post-race interview, or just stomping around the paddock. Some fans absolutely loved this new edgy Lando. They saw it as a sign of a true champion emerging. But others, they saw it as him losing that special, relatable spark that made him so unique in the first place. But here's where things got really messy. Lando's very own reputation, the one that made him a superstar, now started working directly against him. That same raw openness and intense passion that once endeared him to millions began to be weaponized by critics. When he pushed hard on track, sometimes a little too hard, or snapped at his engineers over the radio, it wasn't simply competitive spirit or passion anymore. Oh no. Suddenly, it was arrogance. It was definitive proof that he simply couldn't handle the crushing pressure of being a genuine championship contender. The entire narrative completely flipped, and overnight, every single move Lando made, on or off the tarmac, was scrutinized under a microscope.
Points, another trophy. Let's keep it up. And just stop fucking talking when I'm trying to race.
And look, that's the brutal reality of being painstakingly built up as F1's next golden boy. The fall is always waiting. Those sky-high expectations mean that even the smallest, most insignificant mistake gets blown out of proportion faster than a Red Bull on a fresh soft tire. The same fans who fiercely cheered your ascent are suddenly quick to question your every single decision. For Lando Norris, the honeymoon period was officially over. He wasn't just the lovable, relatable underdog anymore. He was a full-blown target, a lightning rod for both relentless criticism and burgeoning rivalries. And as his aggressive driving style and increasingly unfiltered personality continued their rapid evolution, it became crystal clear that the scrutiny wouldn't just be coming from the fans or the media, it was about to come from the rest of the F1 grid too. There's a damn good reason why so many drivers suddenly develop a severe case of the jitters when they spot that McLaren papaya orange filling their mirrors. Lando's ballsy, borderline reckless, aggressive moves and his sheer unwillingness to concede even a millimeter of tarmac have forged a reputation that's become impossible to ignore, and frankly, even more terrifying to actually race against. Norris isn't just blisteringly quick, he's relentless. Sometimes pushing the limits to the point where rivals genuinely feel like he's gone full send with metaphorical blinders on. That razor-sharp edge has undeniably created its fair share of on-track fireworks, and let's be honest, it's painted a massive target on his rear wing for the rest of the grid.
Game on once again. This time it's the outside line. Oh, they make contact. He's got a puncher. He's damaged his front wing. The leading contenders for the World Championship. Norris limps back to the pit lane. One of the most dramatic moments we have seen in Formula One for recent years.
I did all I could. I gave a fair, respectful, on-the-edge battle, but that's not what I got in return.
Take the infamous 2024 Austrian Grand Prix. Norris and Max Verstappen, two of the grid's fiercest competitors, went absolutely wheel to wheel in a battle that had literally everyone holding their breath. Lando, showing his new aggressive edge, lunged his McLaren into gaps that barely existed, forcing Verstappen, the king of hard racing, to react at the absolute last split second. They came within inches of disaster more than once, so close in fact that the FIA actually launched a full-blown investigation into their duel. While no penalties were ultimately handed out, the white-knuckle tension was palpable. And Verstappen, never one to shy away from a robust fight, made it crystal clear after the race that Norris's audacious approach had, in his opinion, crossed a line. This wasn't just a personal grudge either. The entire paddock buzzed with heated debate, and fans spent days dissecting every single move from every conceivable camera angle.
I did nothing wrong. He was the one in the wrong, so he's the one that should say something, not me.
Norris, however, walked away from that fiery encounter with his reputation as a tough and increasingly controversial opponent undeniably cemented. And the drama? It absolutely did not stop there.
This is brave from Lando Norris, trying to go around the outside. Max Verstappen barges his rival off the road. Verstappen throwing it to the inside. They're both off. Extraordinary. Elbows out, brawling between the two of them. And Charles Leclerc takes advantage.
At the 2024 Mexican Grand Prix, Lando found himself locked in yet another high-stakes, breathless battle with none other than Max Verstappen. This time, Verstappen's Red Bull pulled what can only be described as a tractor-like move into the very first corner, ruthlessly squeezing Norris and forcing him wide onto the runoff. Lando not only lost crucial positions, but also all his momentum, and the entire incident immediately reignited a furious wave of analysis. Was he actively being targeted, or were his rivals simply not respecting him anymore? The pattern became clear. When Lando Norris is in the mix, things don't just get heated, they spontaneously combust, and the scrutiny on him only explodes. But it's not just about headline-grabbing clashes with the frontrunners.
And Norris can't fight his way by. We go to turn one. No, he's ripped off the front wing. The McLarens collide. Lando Norris into the wall and out of the race.
Yeah, I thought Oscar would move a bit more to the right, not to leave a gap, obviously. I don't expect something to be easy from him, but I just misjudged it. It was all my mistake. I take full blame, so I apologize to my whole team and to Oscar for attempting something like that.
The 2025 Canadian Grand Prix brought the drama even closer to home, igniting a nightmare scenario for McLaren. Norris, in a move that still makes engineers wince, tried a desperate lunge on his own teammate Oscar Piastri into turn 3. The result? A horrifying, sickening collision between both papaya cars. Lando owned up to it immediately, unfiltered on the radio. "Sorry, all my bad, all my fault, stupid from me."
Are you alright, dude?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's all my bad. All my fault. Unlucky. Sorry. Stupid for me.
The stewards, unsurprisingly, echoed that sentiment with a swift 5-second penalty. Meanwhile, Piastri, ever the calm operator, quietly picked up the pieces, extended his championship lead, and left Norris with significantly more than just a bruised ego. The headlines were brutal, and those whispers about Norris finally cracking under pressure only got louder. And it's not just rival drivers and stewards starting to raise eyebrows. The F1 punditry has now begun to seriously question whether Norris's growing list of issues are more than just a string of bad luck or overly aggressive racing. Ralf Schumacher, for one, put it brutally. Norris lacks the basic instinct when it comes to overtaking. Ouch. That's precisely not the kind of feedback you want to hear if you're seriously gunning for world titles. This sharp criticism suggests Lando's problems aren't simply about being aggressive, they might be about missing some of those fundamental, almost innate instincts that truly separate the very best from the rest of the grid. When you're constantly operating right on the limit, those tiny gaps in your game get ruthlessly exposed. And trust us, everyone's watching, waiting for that next mistake.
Lando Norris wins the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. McLaren are world champions of 2024. They win.
Are you alright, dude?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's all my bad. All my fault. Unlucky. Sorry.
And off the track, Lando's notoriously unfiltered personality has only added serious fuel to this raging fire. He's always been outspoken, but as the stakes have grown, so too has the backlash. The days when his cheeky trash talk was seen as harmless, relatable fun are rapidly fading. Take his now infamous "luck not talent" comment after the Brazilian Grand Prix, aimed squarely at a rival's dominant win, a line that detonated online, forcing Norris to awkwardly walk it back just days later. Instead of landing as witty or cleverly defiant, it just screamed sour grapes. In a sport where every single word gets dissected, replayed, and memed into oblivion, those moments add up. The more Lando speaks his mind, the more he risks alienating the very fans and fellow drivers who once adored him. All of this has relentlessly hammered home a very distinct narrative. Norris isn't just tough to race against, he's proving incredibly tough to like when things inevitably go wrong. Now, is that always fair? Absolutely not. F1 is the ultimate pressure cooker, and let's be real, everyone cracks sometimes. But in this cutthroat world, perception becomes reality. Every on-track clash, every blistering hot radio message, every subtly misjudged quote transforms into another damning data point in the mounting argument that Lando Norris is simply a magnet for drama. Fans furiously debate whether he's being unfairly targeted, or if he's just relentlessly making life harder for himself. But the effect is precisely the same. He's become the guy everyone's watching, perpetually waiting to see if he'll pull off another genius, brilliant move, or spectacularly crash into yet another controversy. But here's the kicker. There's another, even deeper layer to all this tension. One that's arguably closer than a fierce battle with Verstappen or Leclerc. The biggest, most formidable challenge to Lando Norris's hard-won reputation might not be coming from his external rivals at all, but from a threat brewing right within his own garage. And as the unforgiving spotlight of F1 shifts, this story is starting to look a lot less like Lando versus the world, and a whole lot more like Lando versus the quiet storm right next to him. Inside McLaren, the true crucible for Lando Norris isn't some snarling rival in red or blue. No, the real heat is coming directly from the other side of his very own garage. Oscar Piastri, with his almost unsettlingly quiet focus and relentless robotic consistency, has become the undeniable yardstick by which Norris is now measured. And let me tell you, the numbers are starting to sting. By mid-2025, Piastri had already racked up 6 wins from a mere 52 career starts. Norris, in stark contrast, 5 wins from a staggering 141 starts. That's not just a statistic for the record books, that's a screaming headline that fundamentally changes how everyone, from the paddock to the grandstands, sees the team's pecking order. Piastri's quick rise didn't come with a lot of noise or theatrics. He simply kept doing the basics right, week after week. While Norris's style is all raw, hard-on-sleeve emotion, Piastri's is pure clinical calculation. He doesn't need to sell himself with viral memes or pithy soundbites. He lets his ice-cold racecraft do all the talking. And lately it's been screaming volumes. The 2025 season has made that widening gap impossible to ignore. When Norris infamously tangled with Piastri in Canada and picked up that penalty, it wasn't just a bad day for McLaren, it was a bona fide turning point in the championship fight. Piastri, unflustered, calmly extended his lead by 22 crucial points, collecting whatever he could from the chaos while Norris was left publicly explaining himself over the radio. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. One driver stayed utterly composed and capitalized. The other cracked under the pressure. And there's a damn good reason why Piastri looks so utterly unflappable, almost immune to pressure. And it's not just natural talent. Mark Webber, his shrewd manager and mentor, has been quietly shaping Piastri's approach from the shadows, a master strategist behind the scenes. Webber knows all about F1's cutthroat internal politics, the high-stakes rivalries, and the relentless mental chess game that plays out over a grueling season. Under his seasoned guidance, Piastri has meticulously learned to tune out the cacophony, keep his head down, and make razor-sharp decisions when it truly counts. That's a massive part of why Piastri so rarely gets drawn into drama, on or off the track. Norris, for all his undeniable raw speed and infectious charisma, sometimes lets emotion get the better of him, chasing overly risky moves or venting frustrations in ways that only amplify the relentless scrutiny.
Lando Norris, who was the 3rd youngest driver to race in Formula 1 behind Max Verstappen.
It's not for me to say, it's for him to say something. I did nothing wrong. He was the one in the wrong, so he's the one that should say something, not me.
I'm dumber. Lando and Danny Rick was probably dumb and dumber. Since it's related to cars, it's probably Paul Walker, Vin Diesel. Obviously watched Fast and Furious growing up. I don't know who would be who, because we're both not exactly jacked.
The stark difference in temperament isn't just obvious when they're battling on track. It's just as glaringly apparent outside the cockpit. Lando Norris, remember, built his entire brand on that razor-sharp humor, that refreshing openness, and a willingness to simply blurt out what others wouldn't dare. For a long, blissful time, that made him the undisputed darling of social media and the heart of the F1 fanbase. But now, as the results have undeniably started to tilt in Piastri's favor, those very same traits that once drew millions of fans in are suddenly viewed under a much harsher, more unforgiving light. When Norris is frustrated, his once charming honesty now sounds more like blatant deflection. When he cracks a joke, it sometimes lands flat, coming off as if he's trying just a little too hard. Meanwhile, Piastri's consistently low-key, infuriatingly diplomatic answers have begun to quietly, effectively win over fans who simply want to see hard results. He coolly shrugs off any questions about internal rivalry, relentlessly keeps the focus on performance, and unequivocally lets his driving do all the talking. Team boss Andrea Stella, bless his calm demeanor, has tried his absolute best to keep things steady, repeatedly insisting in interviews that harmony between the drivers is a priority and that both are free to race, so long as they respect the team's interests. But let's be real, As Piastri keeps relentlessly stacking up those wins, and Norris's mistakes get increasingly costly, you can practically feel the tension simmering just beneath McLaren's seemingly placid surface. The so-called papaya rules might sound perfectly reasonable on paper, but every single intra-team clash brings with it the terrifying risk of that carefully constructed calm completely unraveling. Even if the team isn't in full-blown open crisis yet, the media and a hungry fan base are already asking the toughest questions imaginable. Has Lando Norris's time as McLaren's undisputed top hope, the Golden Boy, finally run out? This seismic shift in McLaren's internal dynamic is fundamentally reshaping how Lando Norris is perceived across the entire wider F1 world. For years, he was undeniably McLaren's golden boy, the endlessly relatable underdog with a million viral memes and a fiercely loyal fanbase. Now, every single comparison with Piastri feels less like a casual chat and more like a full-blown referendum on Norris's entire future. Piastri's infuriatingly quiet ability to simply get the job done is setting a brutal new standard, and Lando is the one left frantically scrambling to keep pace. The crushing pressure is visibly bleeding into his interviews, where that easygoing, charming persona is undeniably starting to give way to a noticeable edge and raw frustration. Some of it is genuine self-criticism, but plenty of it gets instantly read as deflection, or worse, outright arrogance, especially when your younger, quieter teammate is consistently outperforming you. What's aggressively playing out at McLaren isn't just a high-stakes team rivalry. It's a fascinating, brutal study in how two wildly different personalities navigate the same white-hot pressure cooker of Formula One. Norris wears his every emotion on his sleeve, a trait that makes him incredibly magnetic, but also leaves him painfully exposed to every single gust of criticism. Piastri, meanwhile, keeps absolutely everything close to his chest, focuses purely on flawless execution, and just keeps delivering. They aren't merely racing each other for track position, they are irrevocably shaping each other's legacies with every single race weekend. With every single race, the sharp contrast between them grows even more pronounced, and so too does the intense scrutiny on Lando Norris. The conversation isn't just about who's faster or who makes fewer mistakes anymore. It's fundamentally about what fans, rival teams, and the global media now expect from a modern F1 superstar. And as those expectations relentlessly shift, so inevitably does the very narrative surrounding Lando Norris. So, here's the brutal paradox at the very heart of Lando Norris's evolving story. Is he being unfairly targeted, relentlessly hounded by a ravenous fanbase and an insatiable media, or is he perhaps simply his own worst enemy? The answer, as with most things in this high-octane circus, isn't a straightforward black or white. And maybe, just maybe, that's precisely the point. F1's ridiculously high-pressure culture means today's undisputed hero can, with terrifying speed, become tomorrow's public scapegoat, with every single action dissected under a microscope, and every single word replayed until the entire narrative twists beyond recognition. Make no mistake, Norris's raw, blistering talent and his captivating, unique personality haven't vanished into thin air. They're just now being filtered through a brand new, infinitely harsher lens. This relentless cycle from adored idol to public target isn't unique to him. It's practically baked into the very DNA of Formula One. So, with everything we've uncovered, which F1 driver do you think is Lando Norris's absolute toughest rival on or off the track? Drop your pick and why in the comments below.